Hi, I'm John Schneider with Mass Insight Education and Research, and I'm very pleased to be joined this afternoon by one of our advanced placement teachers, Felicia Prass, who is an AP teacher of literature and 12th grade English at Excel High School here in Boston, and is a member of our newly formed Mass Insight AP Teachers of Color Advisory Council. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Advisory Council and Felicia's work as an AP teacher at Excel High School. So Felicia, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? I understand that you were a student in Boston, in the Boston Public Schools, and now you're a teacher at the high school.
Yes. Well, first and foremost, I identify as a Black female, and I hold that to be near and dear to my heart as part of my identity. And I think knowing that and being confident in who I am has been the foundation of every endeavor that I've ever sought after in my professional career as a teacher. I grew up in Dorchester, Massachusetts, in Boston, and throughout my elementary years, even throughout middle school and high school, I was always a Boston Public School student. I went to a local elementary school. I went to middle school in downtown Boston, although I didn't live downtown. And then I had two different high school experiences, one at English High School in Jamaica Plain and the other at ACC, another Costa College. After graduating high school, I moved on to Boston College and I stayed there for my undergraduate and then for my master's degree.
When did you know you wanted to become a teacher?
I knew it became very clear to me, I would say, senior year of high school while I was at ACC. I remember very clearly, I always had first period off as like my study period. And during that time, I would be, working on scholarships and applications to college. But if I had extra time outside of that, I would always try to like catch up on my reading, or if another student, another classmate of mine had that block off, we would kind of like reread the text together and prepare for a class second period. And I found that that first hour of the day was kind of like a tutorial for myself, for me to get help from my peers, but also an opportunity for me to kind of take on a leadership role. And then that sort of extended until like after school hours. Sometimes I would just be there. I didn't have a job. I would just be there working in the computer lab on essays. And if anyone needed help, I remember my high school principal recommending people to come and see me. And I was like, oh, thanks. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to kind of help myself, not knowing that I could have been and definitely was a level of support for some of my peers. So that became very immediate and apparent to me that like someone saw something in me. And then it became clear that like, oh yeah, I kind of see this in myself now. Maybe I can be of assistance to others.
It's been obviously a very challenging start to the school year. How are you adjusting? How are you handling uh, the, the world of Zoom and virtual online education?
It's definitely different, and it has both benefits and some drawbacks. I will definitely say that I'm taking it in stride. I think my joy, my level of passion and enthusiasm has not faded in any way, despite the transition to primarily online learning. Um, I will say what I miss the most is that face-to-face reaction and
Mm,
engagement from students.
yeah.
Even though I might ask a question and say like, put it in the chat, there's like that delay where I'm like, are you there? So it does feel a bit disconnected, um, but it doesn't take away from the essence of the content and even my delivery and students' genuine like joy for being there. Of course, there are students who would prefer to be face to face, and so will I. But I think this time has taught me to be very flexible, and it's given me the chance to learn some tech tools that I might not have otherwise delved into.
I think we've all become more competent with our use of technology over the last several months. And so I think if there's one upside coming out of this is that we're a little better skilled in terms of how we utilize some of the technology that's available to us for communication. But it really isn't the same as having that that those live conversations, those in-person conversations. So I want to switch gears now and talk about the AP Teachers of Color Advisory Council, which Mass Insight has started. And you are one of the first of our AP teachers to sign up for the council. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about why you were interested in joining that group and that effort.
As soon as I got the invitation, I took advantage of that opportunity because I consider myself to be a lifelong learner. And whenever there's a chance to, connect with people who I don't know, perhaps reconnect with people who I lost contact with, or simply just to learn something new for the sake of my students, I always sign up. Even if I end up not being able to engage, I definitely want to be part of this wave of change. But more importantly, what really stands out in my mind is, whenever I do attend and have attended in the past a professional development session or a conference, I'm definitely outnumbered, meaning that I'm usually one of very few people of color. And that to me is like, it's glaring. I walk in a room and I feel I had that like hypersensitivity, which is real. That sense of consciousness about like, wow, okay, I have entered the room, I'm here. But then also the sort of unspoken comments that I sometimes feel, which is like, is she in the right place? Is she a teacher? Is she a student? Like I get all those questions sometimes, even very directly. But I find this work to be important because if we do want to see change, not just on an academic level in terms of the content and what we deliver, I think it's important too for us as not just as a school district, but just any organization to be mindful of who are the faces that we are sort of presenting to the world, presenting to our very own students. If we want to talk about diversity and equity, how can we do that in a way that is concrete and at the same time very like humbling for everyone to learn from that experience?
And what do you think are some of the what are some of the challenges that you face as a teacher of color, specifically in the advanced placement program?
I would say the only challenge that I can think of is not that the material or any of the information is somehow not accessible to me, that it's definitely available to me and everyone else. But I just feel that my representation as a person of color is that missing link. That's not really new. That sort of was the case at previous schools in other districts and other states. So it seems to be a national dilemma that can be solved. But I would say that the challenge is simply knowing that we collectively, as a body of educators, we do not represent truly all the different populations of students that we serve. And so if there was a way to fix it, it would be starting sort of with the educators to talk about, what access to materials do you have? Do you not have? What are some things that you need that we might not be aware of? And I think that community, having a community of people that I can check in with, of course, this is a matter of race, so I'm not going to shy around that. But just knowing that I can call someone up, I can email someone who looks like me, kind of has some knowledge of my background experience, and we can bring our skills together again to serve the students.
So an outcome that uh, is important to you is that we're able to build a broader community of teachers of color who can support each other, can share materials with each other, and who can identify with each other
Yeah.
and help each other develop as teachers.
Correct. And there is one more thing that I should add. When I think back to the very first year that teaching AP literature was even presented to me was when I was teaching in a different state, a different district. And my principal at the time was and still is a woman of color. And it makes me wonder sometimes, like, had I had a different principal, a person,
Mm.
you know, perhaps Caucasian or any other race, would they have seen the thing or the things that my former headmaster saw in me? Or, how many years would have had to pass for someone to recognize that this is something that at the time, I had no idea that I would even fall in love with AP Lit. So, in that sense, I didn't take initiative, but I also wonder, would that opportunity have presented itself to me had my headmaster not been a woman of color, someone who is also from Boston, someone who also has been a Boston public school student herself. So I always wonder about that experience, but I truly thank her so much. It's because of her seeing me and seeing, the potential growth that I, could make over the years. I appreciate her so much for seeing me because it made a huge difference. It's the reason why I'm here.
That's a great point, and it's a great place to end. Felicia, thank you for sharing your thoughts, your ideas. We look forward to working with you and other members of the advisory council over the next several months.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.